Today we're going to be talking to Larry Mishler. Today is March the 8th, 2024, and we're really working on a history project for Tempe First United Methodist Church. Hi Larry, you ready to get going?
I'm here. I'm ready. I'm
All right.
ready. Yeah.
I want to ask, can you recall the first time you came to Tempe First?
As a matter of fact, I do. I remember it very vividly. I was an art student, and the art building was the third building down from what is now the nurses' building, or second building down. And parking has always been a problem at ASU. And I parked in back of Ross Hall because there was a place there and no one ever parked there. And so I did, and I didn't get a ticket. I didn't get towed. So I just, every day I would go to class, I would park there, and no one ever said anything. One day I was getting out of my car, and I noticed a friend of mine was coming out of this old house, which is now where our parking lot is. It was the old Wesley building. I asked him, I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Oh, this is the Wesley building." I said, "Oh, this is a church? Oh, that's cool." And he says, "Yeah, it's a Methodist church." And I said, "Oh, okay." And he says, "And they have a pool table here, and it's free." He had me right there. So I started coming to the Wesley Foundation house, and we did some things there. And one day, one of the girls came up to me and said, "Hey, you ought to see what they're doing in the new sanctuary. They're hanging these beautiful panels." And so I said, "Oh, okay." So I walked over there, and they were hanging these 2-by-4-foot plastic panels on brass rods, and it was absolutely beautiful. And here's a picture of what it looked like. And that really intrigued me. So gradually I started coming to church here, and you know, young kids, high school or college kids don't often have a high attendance, but I came when I could, and I enjoyed meeting the people. At the time, there must have been 1,000 people in the congregation because they had three services, and they were packed.
What years were those, Larry?
That was about 1960. Well, the time I first came here was 1962, and it's been 61 years ago.
Okay, who was your pastor at that time?
I think, I'm not sure I remember, but the only one that I remember was Harold Fry. And that's kind of when I became more of a member here. I don't remember exactly the year that I joined, but I transferred my membership from Mesa to Tempe because we lived here.
And when you say we lived here, your family was coming to church here by then?
Well, actually, I was married at the time, and I lived over on Roosevelt, and that's where we lived, and my wife and I.
Did you get married here? Did you have baptisms here? What were the big events?
ASU, I was kind of a mixed bag. I joined Crusade for Christ. There was a man by the name of Elmer Lappin. He was a wheelchair pastor. And somehow I got involved with him, and he got me involved in the movement for Christ at the college level. And it was also connected, it was kind of connected with the church at the time. So that's why I did that. But my wife at the time, my first wife was LDS, and so she didn't come to church with me, so I came by myself.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask, do you have a favorite spot on campus? Do you have some place that means a lot to you?
I thought about that question. When I read that question, I thought about it, and I thought, it is ever changing, because when I first came here, the parking lot was just a dirt parking lot, and you know, I have another picture of that, and but it has changed quite a bit because it's been 60 some years, and it's had to change.
Indeed it did. And we still have 5 buildings on campus now. Some of them you said are gone now, and the others, have you watched any of them change over time?
Well,
Those panels you talked about.
yeah, during the remodel, which was I think 2005, the panels came down, and it was and a lot changed, and you know, I'm not sure I liked the change because it was a beautiful thing, but we ended up with a beautiful sanctuary, and it's different, but it was a change, and it's kind of, everything is changing. For instance, the Memorial Garden was just a pass-through at the time.
Right
and,
off of University?
Yes, off of University, and that was one of the ways that the people would park sometimes across the street and then walk through there. But so there was this pass-through, and then there was a lawn area out where between the sanctuary and Ross Hall, and it's different now.
Would have made a
but,
great place for egg hunts, though, wouldn't it?
It
at
would.
Easter?
It would.
You had children that came to church with you?
Yes, I had, after my second wife and I had 2 daughters, and they were both baptized by Dorsey Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that I set up the camera up in the choir loft and had Jack Surratt, he operated the camera while we were doing the baptism
Mm-hmm.
of both daughters at a very early age.
Mm-hmm. When you think about all of the time that you've spent at this church, Tempe First, all the hats that you have worn, have you been in choir? You've been on many committees.
Yeah, you know, I got to thinking about that, and my children were baptized here, and we came to church, but we never really got involved, and it didn't seem like a family at the time. But since then, when Dave Summers was here, he asked me, he said, we're considering this homeless program, and I'd like to have you and your wife involved and take a look at it. And I said to him, well, I'm not sure I really want to be involved. I've had some bad experiences with homeless people, so just count me out. My wife can do it. He said, well, do this. Look, you've been in business. You've been in the printing business, so take a look at it from a business model and give us some advice that way. You don't have to be involved. Well, he had a way about him that he got you involved.
Set the
And
hook.
for 16 years, we operated the iHelp program every Sunday night, feeding and caring for up to 50 homeless people in Ross Hall. And
That was an overnight program, wasn't it?
that was an overnight program. And one of the things that happened is that when he asked us to do that, then we got involved with other things, and all of a sudden, we became kind of part of the family, and we got to know people better, and you know, just coming on Sunday, you say hello to people, and then you drive home, and but once you get involved with committees and things like that, and I was on the finance committee for a while, and I was on the chair of the trustees and on the trustees committee for several years, and it's part of the family. It's really a good feeling, and that's why I guard against. I know there's always been the opportunity to sell the church to ASU and to move other places, but I always, you know, this is such a well, basically after 60 years of being here, it's part of home, and I really love the place.
Well, I think that's the way Bob and I feel about it. You know, Jack and Judy Sorrett are the ones that invited us to come to this church. We had been going to another one, but it felt like family when we got
Yes.
here. And since our son was already grown, he hasn't really been a part of our church life here, but we've watched a lot of the kids grow up. It's been a real good fit for us, I think. I had one other question for you, and that is, you sort of touched on it. Going forward, what do you see in our future?
Well, we're going to be celebrating the 140th year celebration of our church, starting in 1887, I believe, and or about there. I may have the dates wrong, but
Well, we'll celebrate 2027 will be our 140th, coming from 1887 forward.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's kind of an exciting thing for me because being a photographer, we found all these negatives, and we found from a photographer that was a really renowned photographer in the area, Chuck Conley, was a member of this church. And you know, when I was coming here at that time, there were 3 different services, and so many people, you didn't get to know a lot of. I didn't even know that Chuck was a member here, and I knew him very well. And he left a bunch of negatives that were going to be able to make prints of the old church before our sanctuary that we're now in,
Mm-hmm.
and before it was remodeled, and before it was before the old before Ross Hall was here. So some of these negatives have been really, it's been a fun experience scanning those and making it available for everybody else to look at.
I know we've sort of had more fun than we should be allowed to when we dig into those cupboards in the workroom and find cabinets of documents. We've got the
Yeah.
original deed now, so those have been kind of fun. And I know that all of us are trying to get that pulled together so we can share it with the congregation.
It will be a good celebration.
I think so too.
You know, you asked me what's a memorable thing. Probably one of the best things that I've ever done for this church was when a guy that I worked with asked me. He said, "You go to church? What church do you go to?" And I said, "Well, I go to the First Methodist. You'd probably like it." And that was Jack Surratt and his wife. So
I like that circle.
yeah, that's one of my best things that I've ever done. So
Okay, well, we've got to have some more questions added to this in a little bit, but I think that's what we had for today.